Hello, everyone from the Next Genius Foundation. We are here again with another exciting video on scholarships. So in this video, I'm going to share with you about ways to reduce the cost of attendance or ways to bring down your cost of attendance when you apply to colleges in the US. And this video is specifically focused on undergraduate scholarships for Indian students to study in the US. Thank you for joining. So let me start with a number of ways or opportunities that you have to reduce the cost of attendance for studying in the US. Most of the students or most of the international students would have access or would have an opportunity only to reduce the tuition fee component. Very rarely will you get an opportunity to reduce the living expenses. Very, very few, extremely rarely will colleges offer you scholarships for your living expenses, room and board. So here are some of the opportunities or ways in which you can reduce your cost of attendance. And in this video, I'm going to discuss with you about most specifically about merit-based and need-based scholarships. But then there are many other opportunities as well, like there are scholarships offered by international student, external organizations. There are loans and grants, on-campus jobs, athletic scholarships, and federal aid. But in this video, we're just going to focus on merit-based scholarships and need-based financial aid. Okay, so what is merit-based scholarship? Merit-based scholarships are scholarships which are offered to the students on the basis of their profile. When I say profile, it includes their extracurricular activities, academics, artistic profiles like their portfolios or their music or video samples, things like that. Merit-based scholarships, again, they are mostly tuition scholarships. Very, very rarely, in extremely rare cases, will colleges offer scholarships to cover the living expenses, right, like room and board. These scholarships are offered by majority of private colleges and universities like BU, Boston University, Harvey Mudd College, New York University, Emory University, and places like that. But pay attention to a fact that the more selective a college is, the chances of winning a merit-based scholarship might be low over there, right? So if you are applying to a college which is highly, highly selective, then thousands and thousands of students would be applying for merit-based scholarship at that college. That means that the chances of winning the scholarship there would be much lower, right? So just think about how about a Stanford or Princeton, Yale, MIT, U Chicago. All of these colleges have hundreds of thousands of applications coming in every year, and that's why the chances students just like you, school toppers are applying. All the school toppers are applying to all these top schools. If you think you are among the top 1% students, top 5% students applying to these colleges, and if you're requesting aid or that's very, very few students will actually in the end up getting some kind of scholarships or aids, right? Another factor to consider here, or another factor to pay attention to over here, is most colleges will consider you automatically for a merit-based scholarship. That is, when I say automatically, it means that there might not be any additional application required. But then there are some colleges which would require an additional application to be considered for a merit-based scholarship. An example for that is Emory University. Emory has a Emory University Scholars Program where you must submit an additional application to be considered for a merit-based scholarship. So again, pay attention to which college requires you to sort of, which college would consider you automatically. As soon as you apply, you would be considered for a merit-based scholarship. And which college or university expects an additional form or an additional or a special application to be filled to be considered, to consider you for a merit-based scholarship. Another factor to know about over here is the difference between private and public universities. Advantage that you could think of MIT, Princeton, Yale, the Ivy League or the Ivy Plus, or the other colleges as well. Colleges like University of Rochester, Syracuse University, RPI, WPI, USC, are all private universities. When I say private, these are universities which are run by private trusts. And merit-based scholarships are mostly offered by these kind of universities or small liberal arts colleges as well, like Union College, Wheaton College, Trinity College, Hammers College, Swarthmore, and colleges like that, Mona. Yeah? On the other hand, public universities would not offer any merit-based scholarship to international students. Forget about international students, like students from India, but even the students from other states in the US as well would not be offered any scholarships by public universities. Public universities of like Georgia Tech, Purdue, UC Berkeley, UCLA are all run by the funding or by the taxpayers' money from that specific state. Like Georgia Tech is run by the taxpayers' money from the state of Georgia. UC Berkeley, UCLA is run by the taxpayers' money from the state of California. So they do not offer scholarships not just to international students, but they don't offer scholarships to the out-of-state students as well. So the concept of in-state tuition and out-of-state tuition, in-state tuition is a tuition fees that a student or a resident from that specific state would pay, and that fees is much lower as compared to an out-of-state student. An in-state student would pay probably $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 as the tuition fees, depending upon which university, which state they are in. Whereas an out-of-state student or an international student would pay somewhere around $30,000, $35,000 towards tuition fee per year. Whereas at a private university, the tuition fee component would be much larger. It would be $50,000 or above. But then at the same time, they will offer scholarships, and that would bring down the cost of tuition much lower. And in a lot of cases, it would bring it to the same level as as a public university for an out-of-state student. So that means if you're offered a $25,000 scholarship on a $55,000 tuition fees, your tuition fee component would eventually be about $30,000 per year, which is somewhere similar to what you would pay to a public university as an out-of-state student, $35,000. That is something you should pay attention to when you're applying to public universities. The public universities are able to bring the cost of tuition so low because they are massive, they are huge. They have probably 30, 40,000 students. They have massive resources, and because of the economies of scale, they are able to bring down the total cost for the students. Whereas at private universities, the student body size is much smaller as compared to large public universities, and that's why the fees is higher. A few factors again to remember is that the more selective a private university is, the chances of winning a scholarship would be much lower over there, right? That means the chances of getting a scholarship at Stanford is much low as compared to the chances of winning a scholarship at a private university, which is not as popular as Stanford or MIT. Yeah. So again, one fun factor is when I say that public universities don't offer scholarships to out-of-state or international students or students from India, there might be very rare opportunities where there might be special programs, or be very rare cases where public universities will bring down the cost of attendance to at least about the in-state student, right? If as an Indian student, if you are applying to, let's say, College of Charleston, which is again a public university, the cost might be, if for an exceptional student, the cost might be brought down to the in-state level, and that's really a great deal, a big deal, even for a public university. Offering even that much scholarship to an international student is a big deal. And a full scholarship, well, extremely rare. 1 in 10,000 students probably would get a full scholarship at a public university. Private universities would usually be a little more open, or a little more sort of accepting or inviting towards international students. And when I say inviting, that is reflected by the scholarships that they offer. The amount of scholarships again would depend upon how your profile is, how your academics are, how desperately or how much keen they are on having you on their campuses. That's what would determine the amount of scholarships that you would get at a private university. Yeah? That's a little bit about how merit scholarships would work. Now let's move on and talk a little bit about need-based financial aid. So usually merit scholarships are offered on the basis of merit. Need-based scholarships are offered on the basis of the financial ability of the family, how much they can pay. Students with higher need are usually offered more need-based scholarships. Students with lower need are offered a less need-based scholarship. But again, there are a lot of nitty-gritty and smaller, finer details that you need to pay attention to. A few things to know about is need-based scholarships are also offered by some of the top universities and liberal arts colleges like MIT, Harvard, Princeton, Yale, Amherst College. All of these offer need-based scholarships to international students. Whenever I say offer scholarships, I am right now talking only about international students or Indian students. For US citizens or for students who have a US passport, they have other scholarship opportunities available, federal aid and so on. And I'm not going to discuss all of this. In this one video, we are just going to talk about merit-based and need-based scholarships for international students. So the need-based scholarships are offered on the basis of the financial ability of your family. When you say that you're looking for need-based scholarships, the college would ask you to submit additional financial paperwork. They would ask you to submit the CSS profile. CSS profile uh, is a form or an application which you need to fill. It's a very detailed, elaborate application that you need to fill when you say yes to the question of are you looking for need-based financial aid. Most of the colleges would ask you to submit the CSS profile, but some colleges have their own financial aid application forms available, which you will be required, which you will have to submit, right? Along with that, you will have to submit your tax papers, your parents' tax papers, income tax papers, income papers. They will then, when you submit all of this document, the colleges will then uh, evaluate. Accountants at the colleges will evaluate your all your financial paperwork to assess the uh, amount of money or the uh, paying capacity of your family, will assess the dollars or the money that your parents can pay or are willing to pay on your undergraduate education. So there are accountants sitting there and they are evaluating all of this while you are being considered or offered these scholarships, need-based financial aid, right? When all of this is being evaluated, there are a few more factors that you should be aware of. And there are a lot of colleges which are called need blind and need aware colleges. And then there are colleges which would say that they sort of fulfill the full demonstrated need, or they cover the full demonstrated need, versus the colleges which do not cover full demonstrated need. A college which says that they cover full demonstrated need uh, would be a college who would essentially cover all the need that they have demonstrated. That is, if there is this much is the total cost of attendance, and if your family can pay this much, the college would pay the additional amount to bring you to the level, or they would sort of waive off or offer you financially towards the difference in the amount that your family can pay and the amount that is required if you are accepted. So the point is that if you are accepted in the college which says that they would meet 100% demonstrated need, would bridge that full gap. Whereas there are colleges which would say that there is limited aid available and that if you're accepted, you might not be offered the full demonstrated need, but they would uh, actually offer a little more. Then they would say that, okay, we can only offer this much need, and then there is still a little gap, which then you will have to arrange funds through loans or ways like that, right? So while you're applying to colleges, look at which colleges are need aware, which colleges are need blind, and then eventually which colleges cover or meet full demonstrated need and which colleges do not need full demonstrated need. Because eventually, if a college says that they would not meet full demonstrated need, then there might be additional gap between the amount that is required versus the amount that the college has offered, and then there might be a gap between the two, right? The amount required minus the total funding that you have. Again, a few factors. Another factor to know about is the colleges might have a different deadline application process when you're applying for need-based financial aid. A lot of colleges might have their own application forms, and the deadlines might vary. The deadline to submit the CSS profile, the deadline to submit the tax papers, income papers would be different, and the application process might vary. So always pay attention and always research thoroughly. Go to the financial aid pages of the colleges. Most colleges in the US or universities in the US would have a financial aid page for international students. So go to that and sort of read it thoroughly to understand what the financial aid application process would look like for you. Again, when you're applying for need-based financial aid, mention yes the question which asks you about are you looking for need-based financial aid, the common app or coalition app. All the colleges in the college specific section or in the common app itself, there is a question of whether you are looking for need-based financial aid. Mention yes, because a lot of times if you say no in that, and when you get accepted, and after that, if you request for need-based financial aid, you're not going to honor that. Say yes at the time of application only. If you cannot uh, join the college, or if you cannot enroll without being offered more aid and need-based financial aid, then uh, I mean, it's always better to say yes at the beginning only, because if you say that, if you request it at the end after being accepted, then they might not honor that. Things that you should know before you're applying to scholarships or need-based aid. colleges. Number one is most of the colleges have their own way of offering these kind of scholarships. A lot of times they have a combination of need-based aid plus merit-based aid plus external scholarships plus on-campus jobs plus loans and so and so. So all colleges have their own sort of matrix or way of offering scholarships and financial aid, or they have their own way of helping you bring down the cost of attendance for them. So you can go on to the colleges, the specific financial aid pages and learn more about that. So let me just show you 3 colleges and how they do it differently. Right now, I'll just show you my like how it works at Emory and Harvard and Stanford. So let's first talk about Emory University. So Emory, and it's about international students. Emory has merit-based scholarship. They have a specific program. They have a different sort of a scholar program for merit-based scholarship for international students, and they have a special form for it. So you will have to apply for it separately when you are applying for merit-based scholarships at Emory. Yeah. The application deadline is November 15th. So again, pay attention to when is the application deadline for the merit-based scholarship. The Emory University, same way USC, BU will have their own application deadlines for the merit scholarship program. Second thing is, if you're applying for need-based financial aid, say yes on Common App or Coalition App, the question which says, are you applying for need-based financial aid, and submit or complete the CSS profile. And then additionally, you will have to sort of submit all the other forms, tax papers, income tax, income documents, and all of that. Your parents will have to submit all of that to the iDoc platform. iDoc is, again, it's a platform, it's a service provided by College Board, just like the CSS profile. CSS profile is a service which is provided by College Board. So just pay attention to these deadlines as well when you are applying for financial aid and merit-based scholarship at Emory University, right? So all universities will have a Office of Financial Aid, and they'll have a page like this for international students. In most cases, they have a different page for international students. In some cases, they might have not a different page. They might have the same page, for international as well as domestic students. Let's look at how the process works at Harvard. They very clearly mentioned that the financial aid package is made up of a combination of scholarship funds, student employment, and any outside awards. And they say that loans are never required but are available to interested families. And then below it mentions the different kinds of scholarships and how students can benefit from these scholarships. Federal aid is available to domestic students, that is US citizens, for which they have to fill another additional form, which is called FAFSA, free application for federal aid students. Outside awards, finally, they create a combination of all the different kinds of scholarships and aids and loans. Here they mention that 55% of students receive need-based aid at Harvard, and 1 in 5 students pays nothing. So really, Harvard is a place where if you have high financial need, you can consider applying to Harvard. But I'm not just saying Harvard. Again, look at all the different top colleges or universities that are applying to, and look at the fine print or the nitty-gritty of how they mention things on the financial aid page for international students. Finally, Stanford, the very first line on Stanford's financial aid page says that Stanford has limited amount of financial aid for international students. Very straightforward, that there is very limited aid available. That means if you are looking for aid, then Stanford might not be the right place for you. Thousands and thousands of applications where only very few students will eventually get some kind of financial aid. So something to pay attention to over here, right? The very basic page. So those are some of the things that you need to pay attention to when you're applying for merit-based scholarships or need-based financial aid at universities in the US, right? Let me share with you 3 final tips which would help you get ahead and move ahead in the application journey, and which would benefit you as you apply to colleges and start thinking about scholarships. Number 1 is plan early. Start your process early, research well, research strongly. When you make a list of your colleges, look deeper, look into the financial aid policies of all the colleges that you're applying to. Second thing is connect with admission officers. Write to them, ask them questions, ask them meaningful questions for which information is not directly available on the website. So ask them questions that would demonstrate that you have researched deeply. And finally, work with your high school counselors or independent counselors. Start working with them much earlier in the process. With these 3 tips, I'm sure you will be in a much better position when you apply to colleges and when you sort of apply to them for scholarships or financial aid. If you enjoyed watching this video, then feel free to share it with your friends and let them also know about scholarship and how scholarships and financial aid, so that they can also benefit from it. And hit the like button, and subscribe to us if you would like to have access to more such videos. In the coming few weeks, we are going to make videos on 7 fantastic scholarship opportunities for international students that I'm sure you'd really benefit from. And yeah, there are more interesting videos coming your way. So thank you for watching.